The unbreakable defense, the Chthon Empire, had ruled the outer spiral arms of the galaxy for over 2,000 years, and they had earned that dominion through one simple principle. Their warriors were absolutely impossible to kill. Not difficult to kill, not challenging to kill, but genuinely, mathematically impossible to kill. Their armor was legendary across 100 worlds, forged from crystallized starlight and reinforced with the compressed dreams of dying suns. General Vex Ironscale stood in the testing chamber of the Imperial War Academy, watching as technicians subjected the latest armor prototype to increasingly ridiculous trials. They had already fired antimatter cannons at it, dropped it into the gravity well of a neutron star, and exposed it to the complete philosophical works of the universe's most depressing poet. The armor had emerged from each test not just intact, but somehow shinier than before. "Sir," called out Dr. Krill Mindforge, the Empire's chief technology officer, whose 4 crystalline eyes gleamed with scientific enthusiasm, "we've just finished the final stress test." The armor withstood a direct hit from a supernova simulation. The test chamber was completely vaporized, but the armor just sat there looking smug about it. Vex nodded approvingly. His own armor, passed down through 17 generations of iron scales, had never received so much as a scratch despite surviving battles that had reduced entire star systems to cosmic dust. The Kethrans didn't just wear armor, they were armor. Their entire culture, their technology, their very identity was built around the concept of being utterly indestructible, which made what happened next so particularly devastating. The discovery of humanity had been entirely accidental, a routine. Deep Space Reconnaissance Probe had intercepted strange electromagnetic signals from a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system. The signals were chaotic, contradictory, and filled with what appeared to be reports of devastating warfare. "Listen to this," Dr. Mindforge said, playing back one of the intercepted transmissions through the command center's speakers. "A human broadcasting device has transmitted the following message. I was trying to open a can of soup and the opener broke, so I used my Swiss Army knife, but it slipped and I accidentally cut myself. Had to go to the emergency room for stitches." The Kethrin command staff exchanged horrified glances. A weapon so powerful it injured the wielder just from casual use, and they called seeking medical attention for such wounds routine. Another transmission crackled to life. "My kitchen knife went through this tomato like butter. These new ceramic blades are incredible. They're so sharp I barely had to apply any pressure at all." General Ironscale's mandibles clicked together. Nervously, weapons that cut through organic matter with no effort. These humans were clearly a warrior species beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Sir," Mindforge continued, pulling up more intercepted data, "we've detected references to something they call accidents with power tools. Apparently, their cutting implements are so advanced that they regularly injure themselves just during routine equipment maintenance. They have entire medical specializations devoted to treating what they call workshop injuries." The general's staff scientist, a thin Kethrin named Flux Datastream, raised one of his 6 arms. "General, I've been analyzing their cultural transmissions. They have entertainment programs specifically about something called kitchen disasters. They watch recordings of their own people being harmed by their food. Preparation weapons for amusement." Vex stood silent for a long moment, processing this information, a species so confident in their destructive capability that they turned weapon accidents into entertainment. These humans weren't just dangerous, they were psychologically terrifying. "How advanced is their armor technology?" he asked. Datastream consulted his readings. That's the strange part, sir. We can't detect any. They appear to wear only thin fabric coverings and occasionally what they call safety equipment around their cutting tools. But the safety equipment seems to be more of a formality than actual protection. The implications were staggering. If the humans were so confident in their offensive capabilities that they saw no need for armor, what kind of weapons must they possess? The Cathrons had spent millennia perfecting defense because they understood that in any conflict, the side that could survive longest would ultimately prevail. But these humans seemed to have taken the opposite approach, developing offensive capabilities so overwhelming that defense was irrelevant. That night, General Ironscale called an emergency meeting of the High Command. The assembled leaders of the Cathron Empire listened in growing alarm as he presented the intelligence reports. "Fellow Cathrons," he announced, "we face a threat unlike any in our history. These humans have developed weapons technology that makes our greatest fears seem quaint. They casually wield cutting implements that go through organic matter like butter, whatever that means. They speak of power tools that regularly injure their operators. Most terrifying of all, they consider equipment failures and accidental self-injury to be commonplace." High Commander Zeke Stormhide, whose armor bore the scars of 17 major campaigns, leaned forward. "General, are you suggesting these humans are more dangerous than the Void Crushers of Andromeda? We defeated them with minimal casualties." Commander Ironscale replied grimly, "The Void Crushers used conventional weapons, energy beams, explosive projectiles, gravity manipulators. We understood their capabilities and defended accordingly. These humans appear to have weaponized basic physics itself. They've created tools so efficient at cutting that they require no effort to use and regularly cause unintended damage." The chamber fell silent. Finally, Counselor Prime Hex Wisdom Carrier spoke. "What do you propose?" Ironscale activated the chamber's central display, showing a holographic representation of the armor testing facility. "We initiate the Great Armor Project. We take everything we know about defensive technology and push it beyond all previous limits. We create armor so advanced, so perfectly protective, that no weapon in the universe can breach it." "But sir," Dr. Mindforge interjected, "our current armor already withstands supernovas. How much more advanced can we make it?" Ironscale's eyes gleamed with determination. "We're going to find out." The Great Armor Project consumed the Cathron Empire for the next 500 years. Every resource, every technological breakthrough, every scientific advancement was poured into creating the ultimate defense. They developed new materials that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. They created energy fields that could deflect attacks from parallel universes. They invented armor plating made from crystallized time itself, which was theoretically impossible to damage because it existed in the past, present, and future all at once. The crown jewel of their research was the Eternal Shell, a suit of armor, so advanced that it had to be assembled by robots because organic beings couldn't comprehend its construction. The armor incorporated quantum foam padding, dark matter reinforcement, and a self-repair system based on manipulating the fundamental forces of reality. "Sir," Dr. Mindforge announced as he presented the completed Eternal Shell to General Ironscale, "this armor is mathematically invulnerable. We've tested it against forces that don't technically exist yet. It survived being placed in a temporal paradox. We even had the universe's most depressing philosopher contemplate it, and it remained completely undamaged despite existential dread being technically classified as a weapon in 17 sectors. General Ironscale examined the armor with satisfaction. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at directly, seeming to exist slightly outside normal space-time. When he wore it, he felt completely disconnected from any possibility of harm. "Excellent," he said. "Begin preparation of the invasion fleet. We'll approach these humans diplomatically first. Of course, we're not monsters, but we must be prepared for their inevitable treachery." The Kethron invasion fleet was a sight to behold. 50,000 ships, each one crewed by warriors wearing armor that had cost more to develop than most civilizations' entire gross domestic products. They had prepared for every possible human weapon they could imagine, cutting tools that worked at the molecular level, energy beams that could slice through dimensional barriers, even weapons powered by pure malevolent intent. What they hadn't prepared for was Dave Martinez. Dave was a construction worker from Phoenix, Arizona, who had been hired to help build humanity's first deep space communication array. He was good at his job, showed up on time, and brought excellent ham sandwiches. For lunch, he also carried a basic utility knife in his tool belt, the kind you could buy at any hardware store for $12. When the Kethron fleet arrived at the construction site, General Ironscale himself teleported down to meet with the human leadership. He materialized in a shower of golden light, his eternal shell armor gleaming with power that bent local space-time into interesting shapes. "Greetings, humans," he announced, his voice carrying the authority of 2,000 years of galactic dominance. "I am General Vex Ironscale of the Kethron Empire. We come in peace, but we are prepared for war. Your reputation as weapon masters has reached across the galaxy." Dave, who had been trying to open a shipping crate and hadn't noticed the dramatic entrance, looked up from his work. "Oh, hey there. Nice costume, man. Is there like a comic convention going on?" Ironscale paused, his prepared diplomatic speech derailing completely. Costume. Yeah, that's some impressive metalwork. Must have cost a fortune. Here, let me just... Dave approached the crate again, drew his utility knife, and casually sliced through the reinforced shipping tape. That was the moment that changed galactic history. The utility knife, which cost less than a Kethron soldier's lunch, cut through the eternal shell armor like it was tissue paper soaked in wishful thinking. General Ironscale looked down at the clean slice through his mathematically invulnerable chest plate, through armor that had withstood the heat death of several small universes. He watched as his life's work, his civilization's greatest achievement, his people's entire identity fell away in two precisely cut pieces. "That's impossible," he whispered, and then said it again louder. "That's impossible. This armor survived being placed inside a black hole. It withstood the concentrated disappointment of every being in the galaxy. It's protected by forces that haven't been invented yet." Dave looked at his utility knife, then at the alien, then back at his knife. It's just a Stanley knife, dude. Got it at Home Depot. They're like $12. Asterisk, the great revelation, the news of General Ironscale's armor failure spread through the Kethron fleet faster than gossip at a high school reunion. Within minutes, 50,000 of the galaxy's most feared warriors were having simultaneous existential crises. Their entire worldview had been based on the simple premise that their armor was invincible. Now they were floating in space, realizing they'd been wearing very expensive, very useless metal suits for their entire lives. Captain Zex Battleborn, commander of the flagship Unstoppable Force, stared at his tactical display in bewilderment. "Sir, we're receiving panic transmissions from every ship in the fleet. The crews are demanding to know if their armor is also vulnerable to human weapons. On the construction platform, Dave Martinez was having what he would later describe as the weirdest Tuesday of his life. The alien general was sitting on a supply crate, holding pieces of his armor and making soft whimpering sounds. Other armored figures were materializing around the platform, each one more elaborate and expensive looking than the last. "Hey, you okay?" Dave asked General Ironscale, whose armor was still falling off in pieces. "You look like you've seen a ghost." 500 years, Ironscale muttered. 500 years of research, the finest minds in the galaxy, resources that could have built 1,000 worlds. He held up a chunk of eternal shell plating, and it's defeated by a knife from Home Depot. That's when Sarah Chen arrived. Sarah was the project's chief engineer, a woman who had solved 3 impossible engineering problems before breakfast and was working on her 4th over lunch. She took one look at the scene, her construction worker chatting casually with increasingly distressed aliens while their advanced technology crumbled around them, and immediately understood what had happened. "Oh no," she said, recognizing the classic signs of a massive technological misunderstanding. She'd seen it before when her nephew tried to build a robot that could do his homework. "You folks built your armor to defend against energy weapons, didn't you?" Dr. Mindforge, who had just teleported down with an emergency scientific team, looked up from his readings. "Of course. Energy, weapons, gravitational manipulation, quantum dissolution, temporal displacement attacks, existential threat matrices, weaponized philosophy, and malevolent intention beams." Sarah nodded sympathetically. "But you never tested it against plain old physical cutting, did you?" The Kethran scientific team exchanged horrified glances. "Physical cutting is primitive," Dr. Mindforge protested. "No advanced civilization would rely on such basic physics." "Right," Sarah said. "But here's the thing about basic physics. It still works." She pulled out her own pocket knife and demonstrated on a piece of scrap metal. "See, your armor is designed to disperse energy and deflect exotic matter. But a simple blade, that's just a mechanical advantage focused on a small point. Your armor doesn't know how to handle something that basic because you overthought the problem." Dave, who had been listening with growing amazement, laughed. "It's like buying a $10,000 security system and leaving your door unlocked." General Ironscale stood up slowly, his remaining armor pieces clanking to the ground. "Are you telling me that we spent half a millennium preparing for advanced warfare, and you defeated us with with the most basic tool humans ever invented?" Sarah finished. "Sharp thing, cut stuff. We figured that out about 2 million years ago and never stopped using it because, well, it works." The implications hit the Kethron leadership like a collapsing star. Their entire military philosophy had been based on preparing for threats that were so advanced they'd forgotten about the simple ones. They'd built armor that could withstand the birth of galaxies, but couldn't handle a Stanley knife. "Sir, Captain." Battleburn's voice crackled through Ironscale's communicator. "What are your orders?" "The fleet is requesting permission to retreat to a safe distance." Ironscale looked around at the humans, who seemed remarkably unconcerned about the presence of a massive alien invasion fleet. Dave had gone back to work, casually using his terrifying $12 weapon to open more shipping containers. Sarah was already sketching solutions to the armor problem on a tablet while eating a sandwich. "Stand down," Ironscale ordered. "All ships, stand down. We're not dealing with a military threat here, sir. These humans aren't warriors," the general explained. watching Dave struggle with a particularly stubborn piece of tape. They're just ... practical. They use tools that work instead of tools that are impressive. Dr. Mindforge, who had been running increasingly frantic calculations, looked up from his equipment. Sir, I've analyzed the human cutting implements. They're incredibly sophisticated in their simplicity. This utility knife uses a precise angle of 17 degrees, optimized for maximum cutting efficiency. The metal is alloyed for the perfect balance of hardness and flexibility. It's actually brilliant engineering. Sarah overheard and smiled. Thanks. We've had a lot of practice making things that work well and don't cost a fortune. Over the next several hours, a remarkable thing happened. The Kethron invasion fleet, which had come prepared for a glorious battle against the galaxy's most dangerous weapon masters, instead found themselves in an impromptu engineering conference. Human scientists and construction workers explained their tools while Kethron researchers took notes with the enthusiasm of graduate students discovering a new field of study. So this screwdriver, Dr. Mindforge said, examining the tool with scientific fascination, it's designed to transfer rotational force efficiently to threaded fasteners. That's the idea, confirmed Maria Santos, the project's head technician. Though Dave here once used one to pry open a paint can, Jimmy a stuck door and scratch his back, all in the same afternoon. Dave shrugged. Right tool for the job, you know. The Kethrons were astounded. These humans didn't specialize their tools into narrow categories. They made simple, versatile implements that could adapt to unexpected situations. It was the opposite of everything they'd learned about technology. General Ironscale found himself in conversation with Sarah about human engineering philosophy. Your species focuses on practical solutions rather than perfect ones. Pretty much, Sarah replied. Perfect is the enemy of good enough, and good enough actually gets the job done. Your armor was an amazing achievement, don't get me wrong. It's just solving the wrong problem. What would be the right problem? Sarah thought for a moment. How about making space stations? Your manufacturing technology is incredible. Instead of building armor that can survive supernovas, why not build habitats that can house millions of people safely and comfortably? The idea hit Ironscale like a revelation. The Kethrons had spent centuries developing technology to destroy and defend, but they'd never really considered what they could build. Their engineering marvels had all been focused on warfare, but the same techniques could create wonders of peaceful construction. Dr. Mindforge, he called out, run a simulation. What if we took our armor manufacturing capabilities and redesigned them for construction purposes? The results were staggering. Kethron technology, redirected toward creation rather than protection, could build space habitats that would last millions of years. They could terraform planets in decades rather than centuries. They could create transportation networks that would unite the galaxy in ways no one had ever imagined. 6 months later, the former Kethron invasion fleet had been converted into the galaxy's most advanced construction consortium. They worked alongside human engineers to build projects that neither species could have accomplished alone. Kethron precision and durability, combined with human adaptability and practical innovation, created a golden age of galactic construction. Dave Martinez was promoted to Chief of Practical Solutions, a position created specifically for him after he solved 17 different impossible engineering problems using tools from the local hardware store. His utility knife was retired to a place of honor in the Galactic Engineering Museum, right next to a piece of General Ironscale's original armor. General Ironscale himself had embraced his new role as director of peaceful applications. He still wore armor, but now it was construction gear designed to protect workers in dangerous environments rather than soldiers in battle. He'd discovered that building things was far more satisfying than preparing to destroy them. The greatest irony, as Sarah often pointed out in her lectures at the new Interspecies Engineering Academy, was that humanity's most effective weapon had never been intended as a weapon at all. It was just a simple tool designed to cut things, created by a species that valued practical solutions over perfect ones. The Catherines had learned that sometimes the most advanced technology is the one that solves problems simply and effectively. And the humans had learned that their practical approach to problem solving was far more valuable than they'd ever realized. As for Dave, he just went back to work. After all, there were still shipping containers that needed opening, and his knife was still sharp. The galaxy was a better place when people focused on building things together, rather than tearing them apart. And sometimes, the most important discoveries happen when you're just trying to open your lunch.